Right.
Good evening, everyone.
Kavod Sarah, how are you?
Thank you very much. Hi, thank you. Yeah.
Kavod Sarah, we were in the middle of the Bet Yosef in the present situation.
Okay.
When
Uh,
if they to get married on Shabbat, only on a present situation. That's what I have
okay.
in mind.
Yeah. So okay. So it goes on here about Rashi Peresh, but Rashi explains v'ha mitzvah kabid. He's doing a mitzvah. Klomar v'haya le v'haba le l'mechshabinu b'hade anach demane atam shem mishum mitzvah. Should have included those category of mitzvah. Mashane de'acha b'may askinan. So he answers, what are we dealing with here? B'de'ikka b'de'adif mineh. Something better than that. What does that mean? Mishum hachi. No mane lo bade anach. Right. So he didn't count it in that category because there are things which are superior to that. Bade anach to mishum mitzvah mitzvah. But en lachiname de afilu leka de adif mine. But he says the truth is that even if it was nothing better than that, en danin. Afilu let le isha. So even if he doesn't have a woman, he doesn't have a wife. Ubanim and children, and we don't do it anyway. We don't get married. Afilu leka gadol, and even if there is no bigger brother, so we don't do chalitza. We don't do yimim. Is it that the Rif and Rosh? That's the opinion of the Rif and the Rosh. They wrote the Mishnah simple in the simple form. Levad the mashma the bechol. Besides the fact that it implies that in every government, in every way, so it's forbidden in every way. And because of that, Rabbeinu says, right, Ulazei scheme, Adoni Ayvar he wrote that his father also agrees with this. Even though he says the language is not precise, since the Rosh didn't write the Ferush of Divrei Rashi, explicitly regarding Rashi, but not Divrei Rabbeinu Tam, and also the words of Rabbeinu Tam, Lo Shayach Lashon Iskim. So it's not relevant there to say that he agrees. Rather, you should have written like this. But it seems like it's also the opinion of the Rosh. And the Rambam holds like Rashi. Seems like he holds like Rashi. שבפרק כ"ג מלכות שבת, because in this parak in the laws of Shabbat, כתב סתם דאין דנין לא מקדשים ולא חולצין. He wrote simply, right, that we don't judge, we don't betroth, and we don't do חליצה, ולא בימין, also not ימום. ויש לדקדק לדברי רבנו, so it says that we can make deduce from the words of Rabbeinu the two, מאחר שכתב פלוגתא דרש"י, since he wrote the argument of Rashi ורבנו תם, ולא דנין, that we don't judge, לא מקדשים, also we don't betroth, למה לא כתבה ולא חולצין? Why didn't he say about חליצה? ולא מימין also יבום. מה שכתב ולא מקדשים, and that what she said, we don't divorce also. Shemech Tov, right? So the problem is, why don't we divorce on Shabbat? Because he may come to write something down. So Tosot says it looks like there's acquisition going on. Why? Because he acquires herself, the woman. He's caught to acquire her found objects, and also her wages. Okay, that's the end of the Bet Yosef here, and that was Aleph. There must be one more piece there somewhere. Let's see if we can find it. This one. Close to the end of the chapter. Okay, so let's see this. Right? So it says also we don't, as we said, we don't betroth, we don't do cherem, which is like banning, and also we don't take truma, umasot and maser. Gam ze b'mishnah perek mashirin. It's also over there in the Mishnah. Lam midvan mamud bet. Umparesh b'gemam explains the Gemara. Tama, what's the reason why? Because he may come to do right commerce. Rashi explained that because these things look like commerce. Why is that? Because he's taking something from his own possession and giving it to the holy, to the temple, whatever. He's sanctifying it. And the right commerce is forbidden. Mina mikra. It says in the verse, right? And it says in Yeshayahu, which is talking about commerce, right? Not to do commerce on Shabbat. Okay. And then he goes on. Alternatively, he says, he says that this kind of commerce will bring to writing also. Right? You're going to write, all kinds of receipts, right? And things like this, sale documents. And if you're going to tell me, it's like a decree on a decree, right? We talked about yesterday, right? It's one decree on top of another decree, right? So he answers, right? Same thing I told you yesterday, right? Right? It's all one big decree, right? So it's not one decree on top of another. Okay. So he says, right, that the Ran says that even though commerce was not forbidden, only it's rabbinically forbidden. So he says these things are one, and he's going to come to mix them up. In other words, they look the same, they look like commerce. They resemble commerce. Okay. Let's go on. It says, "Ve'en mafrishin trumot masot afilu mitnam lekohen." So it says we also don't separate, right? Trumot and masot to give them to Kohen. Bo bayom, that day, right? Ken pirash Rashi sham. That's how Rashi explains. Afilu litnam, even to give them lakohen bo bayom on the same day. So it doesn't really, it's not really so apparent that he's coming to rectify his tavla, right? What's tavla? Tavla means untied food. Right? Because he says we don't really know that he needs the remainders. So we see that he's taking the truma to the kohen. ומיקס את כולה מיעוטה משום שמחת יום טוב. So therefore it looks like, you're doing it for the simcha of Yom Tov. The Kohen of the Kohen שצריך לה, he needs it. הוא אפילו הכי אסור. Nevertheless, right, still forbidden, he says. Okay? Interesting. דווקא, מה שכתב, דווקא טביל מאתמול, אבל טביל בו ביום, כגון שלא יישא. So then the Torah says, right, that only applies if it was untied from yesterday. But if it's only untied today, for instance, what's an example? That he needed a dough, right? So then you're allowed to separate challah from them. Okay. So it says Sham beGemara is Ba'er Siman Tafkuv Vav. So it says Bet Yosef, right? It's explained over there in the Gemara. And it was already explained in chapter 506. Okay, good. So then he goes on, says the Kulan imasan ben Rashogeg ben Mazid, Masha Asa Asui. In all the cases he said the Tur, whether he did it inadvertently or or purposely, whatever he did is done. So what does that mean? He can use it. We don't penalize him and say, well, since you did this, right, so now you can't use it. Okay, so he says, where's the source for this? Yerushalmi kitavu sham arif ve'rosh. It's in Yerushalmi, brought down the rif on the rosh. Katav shaminan mina. So he writes there that we learn from here. The man de avad ve'akne b'shabbat mekalka'eh o metaltele haknato hakna'ah. Look what he says. Wow. So he says, right, somebody who sold something on Shabbat, whether it was land, or right, some items, right, whatever. But the avad, it stands. The sale stands. Right? Why is that? Because it's only D'Rabbanan. It's only from the rabbis. So therefore, they don't fine you to say, well, since you did it, we won't let you benefit from it. That far we don't go. Okay, good. Goes on. That's what it says in Rambam, also over there. Laws of sales. Katav Rabbeinu Yerucham. Says this rabbi, B'Shem Gaon, in the name of one of the Gaonim, Misher Achad Bayom Tov, Fidel Atzil Mamon. So he says, whoever rode right, on Yom Tov to save his money, even though he went out of his boundary, since we hold the boundaries are from the rabbis, and also, right, riding an animal is also rabbinical, because you may come to cut the branch. So he says it's not proper to disqualify this person from testifying. But what we do is we lash him and we excommunicate him. But it says if he's a Torah scholar, we don't excommunicate him. Why don't we excommunicate him if he's a Torah scholar?
He probably did tshuva, no? Or no?
Oh, well. Uh, that's an interesting point. What you're saying. There is a basis for what you're saying in the Talmud. But there's also another thing, which is that it says in the Talmud something else that a, a Torah scholar that sins, we don't hurry to excommunicate him so fast. In other words, we give him a chance to adjust himself. I mean, to make an adjustment. So, like you said, right? Because Torah scholars, like, they know what they're talking about. So therefore, he'll probably do teshuvah, as you said. He'll probably repent. Once you explain to him what the problem is, he's gonna be like, oh yeah, okay, I see. So it's not so hard to convince him, that he made a mistake because he knows these things. So we're not in such a hurry to excommunicate Torah scholar, because of that reason, because they usually, straighten themselves out. But if he's not a Talmid Chacham, he's not a Torah scholar. So there, these people are sometimes they're very arrogant, and they're very stubborn, So like, it's stubborn like a mule, like that guy. What's in Israel? What's his name? Right? Stubborn like a mule. Doesn't doesn't want to change his ways. So, right? So that's then you got to excommunicate him because that shows him, like he's in trouble. Then he's gonna start like sweating a little bit. But the Talmid Chacham doesn't need that, because he knows he's very close to it. He's close. Okay. So that's the story there. There is also somebody in the Talmud, one of the rabbis, he says, right, that he says, I deserve to be rewarded. Why? Because I never excommunicated a Torah scholar. So he considered it to be like a merit, he never did that. Okay. That's the reason why.
Which rabbi said that?
I forgot the name of the rabbi.
Okay, thank you.
I don't recall. One day we'll get to it. Okay. We'll track it down. Okay, so right, that's the story there. I think it's brought down in Shulchan Aruch also, and it's written over there. You can find the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so anyway, right, that's the story. Goes on. So now the Perek Kamevi, right? So then he goes on. He brings this Mishnah there, right? In Betzah. Lamed Bet Amud Bet. And min manigim b'makel b'yom tov. So as we said, right, we don't prod the animal, on Yom Tov, to lead it like that, by prodding it. So we already explained this before, right, in the earlier chapter. So it says, this chapter, right, is supplemented by laws of Shabbat, in chapter 339. They supplement each other, So if you look over there, right, he says, you're going to understand better what's written over here. Okay. So okay, good. V'sham timtzeh katzat chidushim b'hem. So he says over there you'll find some chidushim, right? You guys know what chidushim means?
Novel idea, no?
Right, something new, right? Exactly, yeah. A new idea. Okay, very good. So then he goes on. Katav Rivash b'tshuva, right? Says the Rivash, she'asur lifdot haben b'Shabbat or b'Yom Tov, right? Another important thing, right? Which is that you shouldn't redeem your son, right, on Shabbat or Yom Tov. So what does that mean? When you have a firstborn, right, you're supposed to redeem him from the Kohen. So you shouldn't do that. Why is that, by the way? I'm sure you can guess now, right? Why that? Why aren't you supposed to redeem him?
He will come to right, or because of the exchange?
Because it looks like commerce,
Oh,
because you have to give him money, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's like you're doing business, looks like. You're conducting trade, right? Okay. So that's the story there. Okay, so we're done with this chapter. But there is one more, but we'll do that after. Let's first do the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, I probably need to bring it up because it's a new chapter. Let's see here. Tav Kuf Chav Daled. Okay. Oh, no, well. So it says here, right, as we said, and Olin al Gav Ilan, right? We don't climb a tree on Yom Tov, Shabbat. But no Rochabin al Gav Bema. Also, we cannot ride the animal, right? Velo Shatin al Pnei Hamayim. Also, we cannot swim. Velo Mesapekin liakot kaf al yerech. Also, right? Don't clap your hands, right? All that stuff. Velo metapchin liakot kaf al kaf. So clapping your hands, right? Clapping your thighs, whatever it is, right? All that stuff. Velo merakdin. Also, we don't dance, right? Not allowed to dance. So there are some interesting things, you need to know about these things, right? First of all, right, when we say that we're not allowed to dance, what is dancing? So, right, the poskim say that dancing means like you're jumping, like not just walking around. So walking around is not called dancing, So that you can do, just going in a circle. But if you're jumping, in the air, that's called dancing. Okay, and also, we did say in the laws of Shabbat, whatever, somewhere we mentioned, right, that if you want to clap your hands with a shinui, you could do it. How do you do shinui? Clapping your hands. So what you do is you hit the back of the hand instead of the front, like this, not like that, right? Like this. That you can do. Let's get shinui. So okay, it says that in Shulchan Aruch, laws of Shabbat. Okay, good. So it's good to know these things. And then it says Belot Danin, right? Also, we cannot do judgment, right, on Yom Tov, right? No judge, no beddin, right? That's why we don't do conversions on Shabbat, right? Yom Tov we don't do. Belot Mekadeshin, also, right? No weddings, right, on Shabbat, right? Betrothing. Don't give your, don't give your right your fiance the ring on Shabbat or Yom Tov, right? Wait for a weekday. That's another thing, right? So then it says, right, V'lo konsim, and also we cannot do chuppah, right? So there's two, stages of marriage, right? There's kiddushin and then there's chuppah. So we can't do either one of them, right? Both of them we cannot do. Okay, so then he goes on, right? V'lo mi'abemin, right? We don't do yibum also. By the way, why don't we do all these things on Shabbat Yom Tov? Right, marriages, and things like this, right? Yibum, because it's acquisition. It looks like commerce. You're acquiring things there.
You also can't sign a ketubah.
I'm sorry.
Can't sign a ketubah on Shabbat.
Oh, ketubah. Okay, right. But the truth is, that there would be a way to get around that. You could do the ketubah not on Shabbat. You know what I mean? But just do the chuppah on Shabbat, right? Or do the right. Or do the kiddushin, right? So even without the ketubah, there's still a problem there. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say, right? Yeah, that for sure you cannot do. You cannot write on Shabbat. So okay, that's the story, and then it goes on, right? Also, right, v'lo megarshin, right? Also, you cannot divorce, right? As we said. Why don't we divorce? Right? Because you may come to right. V'lo cholzin, right? Also, we don't do chalitza. V'lo makdishin, right? Also, we don't do right. We don't sanctify things, right? For to give it to the temple, whatever, right? V'lo machrimin, right? These are all kinds of things like sanctification, types of sanctification. V'lo mafrishin trumat and masot. Also, we don't separate, right? Trumot and masot. So this also looks like commerce, right? As we said, because it's changing hands. You know what I mean? Okay, right. So this says Ramah here, v'din pidyon ben right kedino b'Shabbat. So he says also, as we said, right, redeeming the son, right, the firstborn, cannot do that either. So we don't do any of these things on Shabbat and Yom Tov. Okay, very good. So we got one more over here, and we're done with the chapter. Bet. Okay, let's go to bed. So it says here in the tour, Bet Yosef, miu bishchimera takif le'alma tuva shar legaresh afilu b'Shabbat tidita bezoret. But he says, you know what? if you have a person who's like deathly ill, right? Very ill. And he wants to divorce his wife before he dies. So there, right, we're allowed to do it even on Shabbat. So in other words, the rabbis did not decree in a case like that, where a person is very ill like that. Anybody know why? Anybody can give me a reason?
What's the question?
So the halakha says, right, that a person who's deathly ill can divorce on Shabbat. So the question is, why did the rabbis waive this prohibition for a person who's ill? So the answer is that because the reason why why does he want to divorce her if he's dying anyway, right? What's the point of it? I mean, so I don't think he hates her that much, So then what's the problem, right? So the problem is that he doesn't want her to do yibum, with his brother. You know what I mean? So he's trying to save her from yibum by divorcing her before he dies. So there, the rabbis allowed that, because there's a special purpose for that, So, right. Why wouldn't you want your brother to do yibum? Why would somebody care about that? So you know what the answer is, right? Because your brother is a bum. He's a lowlife, So you don't want your wife to marry him. That's the whole thing. That's why you want to save her from coming into his clutches. You know what I mean? He's a bum. So that's the whole thing, right? Okay, so let's see the Shulchan Aruch here. So says Shulchan Aruch, Shkimera the takif le alma tuva shari legaresh afilu b'Shabbat. As we said, right? This sick guy, right? By the way, we're not talking about a little sick. We're not talking about somebody who has the flu or he has asthma, right? We're not talking about that. He's like he's about to go. You know what I mean? He's very ill. Right. So a person like that, we allow him, as we said, right, to save his wife from yibum, from his bum brother, right? Or let's say his brother is a gangster, mafia, right? Doesn't want to let her wife, get into his clutches. That's why he wants to get rid of, right, to make sure she's divorced. So the rabbis allowed that. Okay, very good. We're done with this chapter. Let's go to the next chapter. Here we go. Oh, this is a good one. Okay, we got to get into this one. Okay, let me just bring up the tour here. So what does it say here, the tour? Right, Halva Yom Tov Pliged Ba Rabba Rav Yosef, right? The question is, are you allowed to loan, right? Make loans on Yom Tov. So it's a machloket between Rav Yosef and Rabbi. Right? Rabba Amar Nitna Litava, right? Bedin. Rav Yosef Amar Lo Nitna Litava. So right. So in other words, we're not talking about actually making the loan, right, on Shabbat Yom Tov, right? Because that's obviously not allowed. Because you can't, it's commerce, right? You're dealing with money and everything. So that's for sure not allowed. So what are we talking about? The question is, can you go, right, to your friend and reclaim your loan, right? In other words, say, oh, you owe me, like this amount of money, right? Can you do that? Right. So he says, right, that Rabbah says it's allowed to do that. Rav Yosef Amar Lo Nitna Litva. And Rav Yosef says, not, you cannot do that. So says the tour, Yesh poskin Rav Yosef, some poskin like Rav Yosef, but Alfas pasak Rabbah. But he says the Rif poskin like Rabbah. Oh. וכן דעת תוספות, also תוספות. Right? כתב הרמב"ם, גם בעת צדקה גובים את החצרות ביום טוב, אבל לא יכריזו, כדי שמכריזים בחול. So the Rambam, right, relates to this, right, this issue. So what does he say, the Rambam? Right, that he says the right charity collectors, they can collect from the courtyard, right? In other words, the people who dwellers on Yom Tov and Yom Tov, אבל לא יכריזו. They shouldn't announce it, right? כדרך שמכריזים בחול, like they do on a weekday. אלא גובים בצנעה. So he says, what do they do? They collect it like in private. ונותנים לתוך חיקם, they put it into their bosom, right? מחלקים לכל השכונה, then they, right, and then they hand it out to the neighborhood. ושכונה בפני עצמה, right? Each neighborhood by itself. So from the context here, right, looks like we're talking about food, you know? We're not talking about cash, obviously, because you can't, you know, cash is muktzah, right, on Shabbat, you know, Yom Tov. So it can't be that. So apparently we're talking about food. Okay, we'll see. Let's see about Yosef, right? And we'll see. But that's the end of the tour. That's the end of the chapter there. So let's look at the Bet Yosef. So says Bet Yosef, it brings the source, right? Beresh Perek Shoel, right? It's over in Shabbat. Kuf Bemchet Amud Bet. Beresh Rashi explains, Lo nitna litaba bet din she'en bet din nizkakin le'olam. Right. So he says you can't. Says Rashi, right? You can't go and claim in bet din your loan, right? And say, okay, sir, you owe me, you know, right, the money, right? Pay me back. You can't do this on Shabbat. So obviously that we're not talking about actually giving him the money, right? Because that you cannot do. So what are we talking about? Just to make the claim, right? You know, in the bet din. That's it. Okay. Right. So we cannot do that, right? According to this opinion. So it explains over there. What's the reason Rabbi Yosef? Because you can't tell me, right? You can claim your debt on Yom Tov. He's going to come to write it down. Oh, my God. So what about Rabbi, right? The other side. What's his reasoning? So he says, you can't tell me, right? You cannot claim it. So he says he won't give it to him, and he's going to refrain. He won't have simcha on his Yom Tov. Whoa. Wow. So he says they're only arguing about a case where there's no pledge, right, involved. But if there's a pledge, Hatanan, we learn in the Mishnah, Shoel Adam Mechavero, that a person can ask his friend, right, etc. If he doesn't believe him, Maniach Talito Etzlo, so he can leave like his talit, right, as a pledge. They'll say Imo Cheshbon Lachar Shabbat, and then after Shabbat they'll make like a calculation. You know what's the precise amount, whatever it is. Okay, interesting. So it goes on. Mashkatav Rabbeinu be'arif, and that was Rabbeinu said the tour. The Rif Pasak Rabba, that Rif Paskin Zak Rabba. Eno Barur Shel Katav. So he says it's not really so clear. Okay, well, so because he writes the Rif, Dika Man de Pasak Rabbi Yosef. He says that there is one in Pasak like Rabbi Yosef. Mishum de Rabbahu. Because he's the rabbi of Rabbah. The Daha. Rav Avia Sabar La Kibate. And also, this rabbi also holds like him. The Shakir Mashkanta, that what? That he can take his right pledge, Perush Beshat Alva'a at the time of the loan. The Rabbah Bar Ula Kam Marima Arume. This rabbi, right, he was doing some kind of a deception, whatever. Shelo Ayat Tov O Beferush, right? So, in other words, what kind of deception are we talking about? He wouldn't like literally ask him for the, for the debt, for the money. Ela omer lo, right, halveni hilvao, right. So he would tell him, like lend me like I lend you. He lend you. Omer lo, yesh li etzlecha kach v'kach. So he tells him, right, I have like this much amount, you owe me this amount of money. V'ikam man de pasak keraba. So that there are those who pass like Rabba. Mishum dehu batra, because he's the batra, right? You guys know what's batra, right? Batra?
The last generation, Kabbalah Taraf?
Right, exactly. He's the last generation. So why do we pass like the last generation? What's the purpose of that? So the answer is because. Oh, you got any takers? Okay.
He was probably the biggest one of that last generation or something like that.
Right. So what's the reason why we care about the last generation?
That's a later authority, no?
So what? So the answer is like this, right? That because he's closer to he's closer to our time, you know what I mean? So that applies more to our situation. There's a concept like this, right? So what does that mean, right? Every generation, things change, right? There's a different kind of a situation going on in every generation. So the rabbi who belongs to that generation knows better, the rules of that right generation. He knows better the parameters there, what's that are going on. So he feels it better, what the halakha should be for that time period. And so this is the reason why we so these things change, like every period has its own the quality, so the rabbi who's closer to that time is closer to that quality. And so that's why we go like the batra. There's also another thing, which is that since usually it's like a machloket, these things, right? So the batra, right, the final guy, what he does is he weighs both opinions, and he comes up with the right conclusion after he saw both opinions, So he's more like, the final word, the last word there, So these are the reasons why we go like the batra. Okay, so that's the story there. So he says, right, that it seems like he doesn't pass like any one of them, right? What are we talking about here? The Rif. Okay, interesting. So he doesn't agree with the Tur, because the Tur says he does paskin, but Maran says no. It says in the Ran, so they all agree, right, that the Rif didn't paskin here. Okay, so right, we're just left with the bare bones Talmud, right, without any. So the truth is, right, that there's a rule with this in the Talmud, right? When there's a machloket between Rabba, sorry, and that's maybe Rabba, right? Not Rabba. Okay, whatever. Anyway, okay, we'll can that. But anyway, right, let's go on a little bit. So it says, Mash katav Tosfot paskut b'Rabba. But that what she said, right, that the Tosfot paskin is like Rabba. Kakatab Shem Rosh, right? Shem Rosh. Rosh also says that there. Bishmam, in their name, right? Chen pasak Rambam, also Rambam paskins like that, right? Katav Aran, the afilu l'divrei mi sheposek lelo nitna. So the Ran says, right, even according to one paskins that nitna tava, that you cannot claim your loan. At tafis, right, milbe lamafkina mine. But if he did take the money, he confiscated the money, we don't take it back from him. Whatever he did, he did. He had the Rabba Bar Ula, like this rabbi, the Marim B'Shakil Mine, right? He would do like a trick, be like a little bit, right? He would be a little bit evasive, whatever, and take it. The odd, the Anan Lo Nitna Ditaba Ka Aminan. So it says, furthermore, we say, right, that it's not, you can't claim it. כלומר, בית דין, אבל בין דידי לטובעה, but he says, just, between him and him, you can do it, right? He can't do it in the beit din, but just, just between them, you can do it. The tafis, and if he grabbed it, right? He confiscated it. The tafis, and also, right, if the other one goes and confiscates from him, midi mafkinan mine, right? So we do confiscate from him the lovev of the borrower, the avinan we give it to the lender. Says now we're not collecting a loan of Yom Tov. Ela gezela. So it says here we're talking about theft. It's not a loan anymore. He stole the money. Right? So that we do collect, right? Okay, very good. I think we have a lot more to do here. So I guess no, not really much. Okay, I guess if you have like a couple of minutes, we can maybe finish it up. So anyway, right? Says here, כתב עוד ימינן בגמרא, it says furthermore, we say in Gemara, גם ביום טוב של ראש השנה, וגם יום טוב יום ראש השנה, אם היה חודש מעובר, if it was a right full month, דאמינן עלה shani hatam deigla milta, because we say regarding that it's different, because it's revealed the cholhu, it's that it's really actually. It's actually a weekday. Katav Rashba says Rashba Mikani Eli. So it says from here it seems to me to learn the Kili Alma B'Yom Tov Sheni the Rabbanan Nitna Litaba. So according to this, right, it seems like everybody agrees that on the second day of Yom Tov, which is rabbinical, you can claim the null. So it's raya. So but for me it's not really a proof. It says the Shani Hacha is different over here. Shenahagu Berishon B'Taut. Because the first day was only a mistake. About the Didan, where it says by us, the Avdinan Tere Yome Itakanta, since we do 2 days because of the the decree, so it could be right that even the loan on the second day of Yom Tov it's not possible to claim it. Okay, it says Beit Yosef, right? Bottom line, what's halacha? Right? כיוון שהרמב"ם והתוספות מסכימים, זה הלכה כמאן דאמר ניתנה לתבעה, הכי נקטנה. So it says the Rambam and Tosfot, right, say that you can't claim it, right? So that's how we paskin, he says. So bottom line is that you can claim. Okay. Good. So yeah. I was just wondering, why didn't he bring here the Rosh also? You know who said this? He did. He brought Tosfot, but not the Rosh, right? And the Rosh is like the big three, so he should have brought him. So now I see the answer, right? I'm looking back at the text over here. I see the answer why I didn't bring the Rosh. Because the Rosh didn't really paskin like this. He just quoted the Tosfot, So it seems like that's not his own opinion. He just quotes the Tosfot. So therefore, we attribute that opinion to Tosfot, not really the Rosh. Okay, you guys are following me? I hope you are. Okay, so let's see Shulchan Aruch. I think I have to bring it up. It's a new chapter, right? Let's bring it up. This one is. Did I bring it up already? Kuf 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 Hey. Okay. Yeah, look, yeah, okay. I have to bring it up, I think. Okay. Okay, so it says Shulchan Aruch here, very simple. Halva'at Yom Tov nitna litba b'din. Right, so there you go. Right. So if you have, right, as we said, a loan, right, and you want to claim your loan on Yom Tov, so you can go to the Beit Din and claim it. So he says over here in the parentheses, Ayin Le'el Siman Shin Zayin. Look over there. It says laws of Shabbat, 307, right? Paragraph 11. See if you Aleph. So, but you're allowed to claim. But didn't we say, right, okay, now here's the trick question, right? I always have a trick question up my sleeve. Didn't we say you're not allowed to do a bet din on Yom Tov, right, and Shabbat? So how are you allowed to do this? Trick question. Watch out. Okay, go ahead. I'm set.
With the talit, no, Kavod Harav, he gives the talit.
I'm sorry?
He gives the talit instead?
No, we're not talking about that. So anybody have an idea? So it's a trick question. Watch out. Okay, so the answer is like this: that even though you're going to the Beit Din, right, to claim your loan, right, it's not really a Beit Din here. You get my drift?
Yes.
In other words, what I'm saying is that it's not a Beit Din procedure. It's just using the Beit Din as a collection agency, you know?
They're not making a judgment. It's already
Exactly. There's no judgment going on here. Right. That's the point, right? Okay, you got the point, right? You're just using it as a collection agency. Okay, very good. So, Bezrat Hashem, we'll pick it up next time. Thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. Right? You know, we wiped out some Nazis, Baruch Hashem. Beautiful. These big Nazis, you know, who are the kingpins, you know, of the Nazis. You know what I mean? We Baruch Hashem, Yishtabach Shemo. Arch enemies of the Jewish people, you know, believe me. These are like, each one is a little Hitler, you know? Baruch Hashem. Wipe them out. Okay, very good, Bezrat Hashem. We'll get all of them, Bezrat Hashem. Like Bibi said, we'll get them all. Okay. We'll see you tomorrow. Chazak Baruch. Kavod Harav, thank you so much. God bless.